Hello and welcome to episode 3 of the E-Learning Unlocked podcast. I'm Gill Chester, the founder of Little Man Project. We're a bespoke development company that specialises in developing learning experiences for charities in the third sector. This podcast runs alongside our E-Learning Unlocked blended learning programme. This programme supports learning and development professionals in charities to design effective e-learning for their staff and volunteers. In this episode of the E-Learning Unlocked podcast, I am flying solo. It's just Gill here from Little Man Project, talking to myself or talking to you, hopefully, and which is a little odd because I've got no one to talk to directly, no one to look at, but we'll see how this goes. So the podcast today, I'm going to be talking about the importance of creating a project process when developing your e-learning. So I'm going to focus on 4 areas around this. I'm going to talk about why it's important, how you might do it, what you might include, and what do you do once you've got that process and you're following it. So, starting with the why. So I think really the most important reason for having this, aside from how useful it will be for you as a developer, if that's what you're doing, will be to give clarity to the stakeholders involved in your project. We really believe that good e-learning is created when you do it in collaboration with others. So that would be stakeholders, other team people, members of the team within L&D. It might be, your ADDIE experts. It might be your brand team. We believe that bringing those key stakeholders together who really know their field will really make sure that you're getting the best possible outcome for your project. But to make sure that those people can actively engage with the project, can contribute effectively, you really need to make sure that you've articulated for them the steps that they're going to follow. So that when they're reviewing documents from you, when they're giving feedback, when they're commenting on specific, things or answering questions, that they can do so understanding where their input will go, what will happen, and, really give you the best possible feedback because of it and the best possible contribution. So, aside from how beneficial it'd be for you to follow a clear, laid out process, it's going to be really important for your stakeholders and the best way for you to get the best from them. So I think it's also a great way to keep them involved and active. If you explain the process that you're going to use with them, if they come on board on that journey with you to create that content, then you're going to get the best from them. And you're going to, remain, that they're going to retain that excitement that you managed to build with them at the very beginning of the project. And I think the only other thing to say around the why is it important? And that would be to stop project creep. We often hear from clients who are developing in-house and, they're having, maybe gold 2 or gold 3, that it's not stopping. The project just keeps going. People keep adding feedback. People keep commenting and making, can you just make this change? Can you just do this? So by articulating a clear process that you're going to follow, having clear rules at each of those steps along the way about what is possible, what should be provided at each of those steps, then that's going to really try and, stop that project creep that you will have if you allow people to just, I'm just giving you this feedback, or I was off sick, so I'm not going to give you that feedback on this one. I'll look at it next time around. But then when they look at it next time, they find that it wasn't in line with what they were expecting or what they wanted. So taking that time to design your process, to set ground rules for each step of the process, and then to communicate that process to your stakeholders, that's going to be really important for you to make sure that you've got them fully engaged, you avoid project creep, and you also avoid stakeholders trying to take over and, apply their own process or map to the process because, maybe they're more senior to you, or maybe the project is particularly important. By having that process documented and articulated, then it becomes the base for you so that you can avoid them making those changes. So how might you go about creating this process? Well, the obvious starting point would be to look at some of the models that exist already. So you'll be aware that this podcast is running in line with eLearning Unlocked, our online program for charities, where we're exploring the kind of A to B of how to create good e-learning. And we're in Unit 2, and Unit 2 is looking exactly at this point on process maps. So in that model, in that unit, we're going to be looking at a number of different process models. So I will list the ones we're looking at in the episode notes so that you can go and do your own research on them. But they include SAM, we're looking at ADDIE, we're looking at the Kemp model, we're looking at PPP. So a number of different models that have come as a result of research and, tried and tested models. So that would be my first thing to recommend, is to go and do a review of what models exist, what models people are using, and then, decide which one of them works for you. Which one resonates with you, which one is maybe closer to the model that you're already using. So that would be step number 1 for your how. Step number 2 for me would be maybe to talk to stakeholders if you are creating content already. So let's imagine that you're creating content or, on a regular basis for your compliance team or, for managers. Ask them if you could spend some time with them based on the model, the process that you're using, and talk to them about what has worked with that process. What did you do that was really useful to them? What worked? What didn't work? What did they understand? What didn't they understand? And then you can use that feedback to design a new process. Maybe it's just an enhancement, but maybe it's a completely new process because you've done your research on the different models that are available and you've kind of gathered feedback from stakeholders on what they need and what would be beneficial to them. And then my third kind of point of call would be also to look at commercial models. So what is the commercial e-learning sector doing? And that would include us. So Little Man Project, when it comes to the build side, we use 4 stages. So we use outline and prototype, which is our stage 1. We use alpha, beta, and then gold. So that's 4 review points for our stakeholders to look at the content. And we use various documents within each of those stages, and each of those stages will have rules that we require that are met before we can move on to the next stage. So we have got a piece of e-learning, of course we do, on the process that we use, which we share with our clients so that if they want to, they can learn more about the process before they start a project with us. It's really useful if you're doing a number of projects with a client because it just helps people to get up to speed and feel really confident in what they're doing in terms of managing the project internally. So I will put a link to that piece of e-learning in the episode notes as well. But obviously we're not the only e-learning company. There will be plenty of commercial suppliers who will explain the process that they use on their website. So do a little bit of research and see what other people are doing. And then my 4th tip when it comes to the how would be to talk to other people. What are they doing? What are other charities that you know that are creating e-learning? How are they managing their process? What are they doing? Now, you could put a post out on LinkedIn. You could talk internal forums for charities. I particularly encourage you to talk to charities who are using commercial suppliers and say, okay, well, what process did they use? What worked for you? Did they provide you with any documentation in terms of what does an outline look like for the supplier you've used? And just use that, not to copy necessarily, although we don't mind if people copy our process, but really just to kind of get a feel for what commercial suppliers are doing, because clearly we're doing this day in, day out, and we're working hard to make sure that that process is the best it can be. I mean, that's important to us to get the best for our clients, from our clients and for our clients. So yeah, that would be another option. Talk to other charities, find out what they're doing internally themselves. And if they have used an external supplier, a commercial supplier, then ask them what they did and what worked within that process and what they liked from that process. So I've kind of briefly touched on the processes, the steps that we use. So we use these 4 steps. Now, clearly there are actions beforehand. So particularly important element for us would be our kickoff meeting, which happens at the very, very beginning of a project. And that's where we talk to clients, new clients, about the process that I'm describing to you, what's going to happen. And we really make sure that everybody understands what steps they'll need to follow and what will be required of them at each of those steps. So that's kind of what our process looks like after we do that kickoff meeting. My team go away and do a lot of research. We would then get a source document, and then we use that to design. And that design element, again, will look different everywhere. But each of these are key points. They're documented, and we present those to clients to give them complete clarity. And so that's a really useful process for you to think about, for you to do within your own team. So my kind of final thing is you've designed your process. It looks like whatever it looks like, whatever you think is going to work for you. What then? Well, I would suggest that a really useful and important thing would be to get as senior buy-in for that process as possible. So as high up as you can go within the organisation to get buy-in from them on your process. And maybe that's including, getting it set up as a procedural document that's articulated and filed with other documents, or, kind of within that policy structure. But by doing that, that's going to help you push back. Going back to our why, it'll help you to push back for people who want to fast track or circumvent or go round your process or impose their own process on you. The higher up you've gone in terms of getting that senior management buy-in on your process, the better it will be for you when pushing back for people who want to do it in a different way. Then my kind of final thing to say around, what then, once you've got it, and that would be to continually review it. So that will depend on, what you're doing. We tend to do this for half a day once a year, but we're recording throughout the year any rub points, any problems that we've had, any clients that struggled with the process, any points in the process that continually don't seem to work effectively. And then we come together once a year as a team on an away day, and we review that process. And we review every aspect of that process, whether that's documentation, whether it's the emails that we send, whether it's the project plan or the process image that we use to explain the process. We look at every single aspect of it, and we work out what's working and what's not working. And that reflective moment, that time away from the office, is a really, really important part of, reflecting on what's working and improving, continuous improvement. We also do a survey with our clients to ask them how the experience was for them. And we gather that and use that, and it's anonymous. And we use that then to improve continually. So whatever time frame you use, that will depend on you and your own project plans and project schedules. Maybe it's every 10 projects. Maybe it's once a year like us. But whatever it is, make it a hard and fast rule. Schedule it in and take time, both, within you and your immediate team, but also with any stakeholders that you have, to gather data and to really continually improve that process. And because it will be the key to the success of your projects. There's so many elements that will contribute to success, but collaboration and really good engagement from stakeholders is really one of those important points. And that process will help everybody to contribute as effectively as possible to that process and eventually to great results for you and your e-learning.